I don't know what I was thinking. And I think that is what led me to the actual signing the paperwork, because it happened so fast. So when I called her and said, just please let me know, it wasn't even a week later and we were talking numbers. Let's start to transfer some things over. Let's meet at the lawyer's office. Let's sign the papers. And I didn't really have time for my type A brain to really think about it and get scared.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Total Michigan, where we interview ordinary Michiganders doing some pretty extraordinary things. I'm your host, Cliff Duvinois. So, as usual, I'm back in Port Huron again, collecting more stories while I'm here. And it occurred to me that one of the things that we've never done is we've never talked or covered the topic of yoga. Now, I like to do yoga almost every single day. It's just a part of the fact that I'm fighting the battle that we all seem to fight. And that is, we're getting older. Muscles don't work quite like they used to. We don't have that flexibility. We struggle to do normal things that we could do in our 20s almost blindfolded. So anyways, in doing this, I came across a pretty unique story while I was here in Port Huron. And I said, you know what? Why don't we have some conversation about this? So please welcome to the show, Emilee Hartwig of Happy Dog Yoga Studios. Emilee, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for asking. So why don't you tell us, what is Happy Dog Yoga Studios?
Happy Dog Yoga Studios, notice the S on the end. We have 2 locations. So started off just here in Port Huron in 2015, and then expanded a year later into St. Clair. So we've pretty much always been 2 studios. We offer yoga classes at both studios. We have about 30 classes a week. Some of them are even live streamed, virtual. And we also offer, Reiki, which is energy healing. We offer massage at both locations. We have, more fun things coming. I'm not going to say too much, but we have more fun things like that coming on the energy side.
Right.
So yeah, we're just kind of really focused on fitness, mental health, spiritual health, whatever it is you're looking for, you can usually find it in yoga, is what we have found, all of us personally as teachers and instructors.
Right.
And then a lot of our students say the same thing.
Cool. And I know that I definitely want to dive into that a lot more. But before we do, if you would, Emilee, tell us, where are you from and where did you grow up?
I live in St. Clair currently. I grew up in St. Clair. Really just kind of been here since I was very little, first grade. So I've been in the St. Clair area, Blue Water area, all of that I can remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent. And now so you grew up in the area. Did you go to college?
I did. I went to the community college here, and then I went to Baker College, which used to be up here in Port Huron. I went to college to be an elementary school teacher. So I went for early childhood education.
Okay.
2008, which was 2 years after I graduated, high school, wasn't a great time for teachers. So in the teaching program, the dean kind of came in and was just like, if this isn't something you want to do for very little money, I just think about it before you continue on. That was the dean of education at Baker told us that. Because they were just laying teachers off. It was not good for teachers at the time.
Right.
And so, I kind of took that as my hint as, let's just maybe just pause this before I continue on. I was getting right into that student teaching portion. So the last half of my schooling. So, took a break from that, ended up, having kids in the meantime and just doing other things. And then, started doing yoga myself, teaching yoga. So I kind of still stuck with the teaching thing in the grand scheme, just not little kids.
Right. So why did you decide to become a teacher?
A teacher here? Or
well, you became a teacher.
Well, no, I didn't. I stopped at the student teacher. I took that from the dean and I dropped out.
Oh, I get it. My bad. My bad.
You're good.
So why were you thinking about going in education?
I just always wanted to be a teacher.
Okay.
I liked little kids. I didn't want to teach. I really didn't have any interest in teaching adults. In the teaching program, that would be more like high schoolers, right? I had no interest in being a high school teacher, but I really enjoyed little kids. I enjoyed that 3 and 4 year old, that preschool age, just that really early childhood. To me, that was always what I wanted to do. Never even thought twice about anything else.
Certainly.
So yeah, I don't know if it was just the, I don't know, maternal instinct in me or something, but I just like really, really enjoyed little kids. I was babysat. I was a lifeguard in high school. Like I did the swim lessons with the little kids. Like that was just always what I was drawn to. And then, like I said, I kind of got a little spooked during that time and it worked out. Okay, I'm happy where I am now, but
yes,
yeah,
definitely. So how did you stumble across yoga?
I had just had my second daughter. So this was like 2011, end of the year 2011. And I was looking for, kind of like get back into the groove. Just had a baby. So you're kind of figuring out like, what can I do fitness wise? Do I want to run? Do I want to go to the gym? Do I, how do I want to exercise and take care of my physical body? And at the same time, you're kind of, how am I going to take care of like my mental self as well? I was really young. I was like 22 or 23 at this time. So, trying to figure out that as well. This young 20-year-old, taking care of my physical body. And then now all of a sudden, my mental stability, like, I need to, maybe focus on getting out of the house here and there. And so that's when at the time, my boss's wife, invited me to come with her to a yoga class. There weren't any studios in the area at that time, so we went to a chiropractor's office, but it was in the basement.
What is it with chiropractors and yoga?
It's their thing. And so we, I went with her to that class and like I came home, put YouTube on my phone, right? It's 2012, so it's not like nice big iPhones like this,
That's
right?
True.
It was
That's
like,
true.
I don't even remember what it was, but it was not good quality. And I was like finding yoga classes on YouTube, right? How can I get more of this? It was that night. Like I had just finished my first hour class. And ever since then, it's just, going to classes and then eventually.
So what
teaching.
Was it about yoga that hooked you?
I think it wasn't even necessarily the physical, which I think sometimes that's a lot of people's like, I feel better when I'm done physically. And I did, but I don't think that was what grabbed me at first. I think it was that hour of like selfishness. You'd feel like as a new mom.
I think they call it self-care.
Right. But you feel a little selfish, right? You left your babies at home. You went and did this just for you. I had no phone on me, right? Like you don't bring phones into the studio. It wasn't like I was at the gym and could still be in contact. Like it was 1 hour that was like just mine. And I think that was it because I could never replicate that at home. Like I said, I went home and tried to find classes on YouTube. Sure,
yeah.
And like I never felt that same feeling.
Right.
So then it was more like, okay, I need to keep going to these classes because when I do it at home, the physical part feels really good. I'm getting the good stretches and my back feels good. But it was that part that was
the social part.
Yeah. And it's not even social because you're not even really talking during it. It was the like just me time. Even when you're at home doing yoga, I can still hear the dogs barking or I can still, the baby monitor if the baby's napping or, you get down on the ground and underneath the couch, you're like, I haven't vacuumed under here in a while, right? So it's like you're still at home. So it's not just your time where when I would go to a studio or a chiropractor, just anywhere else to do yoga, it was like, I don't care what's going on. For 1 hour, like anybody can survive 1 hour without me. And that was, I think, the selling point for me at the time anyway.
You start to get into yoga. You're loving it, going to the studio, taking classes.
Yep.
And at some point in time, you said, I want to be an instructor.
Yeah. Yep. So the studio opened here and then the studio opened in St. Clair very shortly after. And so it was very exciting to have a studio in town.
That was a big deal.
That was a huge deal because and on my yoga journey of going to basements and doing yoga, start finding studios, but they were like a half-hour drive. So, which you'll do, right, when it's something that you love to do, but you don't get to go as often as you would maybe want, right? Because now my 1 hour class is turning into a 2 hour with an hour commute. So, when the studio opened in St. Clair, it was just so exciting. And even this one, because it was super close to me, is only like a 15 or 20 minute drive to get here. So I was very excited to have studios in the area and was going to classes there, had class packages. And yeah, then it just one day it was like, I really, really like it. Like, I wonder what you would have to do. How do you become a yoga teacher? And I just literally Googled that. And then, a bunch of yoga studios that offer teacher trainings popped up that were in the area. And the closest one at the time was Rochester.
Little drive.
A little bit, about an hour away. And they offered a teacher training. It was like I was putting my kids on the school bus. I was putting my kids on the school bus at this time. So, it was September-ish. And I started their teacher training program in October. So it was, like once I decided, I just signed up and I was going to Rochester every Sunday all day long from 7 in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And
that's intense.
Yeah, it's 200 hours is what, you have to do to become a yoga instructor. So in the grand scheme, it's a very quick process, but at the time, this is long days.
So when you're doing the instructors, because I see this all the time with yoga instructors, they're like amazingly flexible, doing things that I just think are just superhuman. So you can be honest with me. In the instructor class, do they give you all the shortcuts of how to make that happen?
No, not really. No. I think, we see the instructors that are like that. And it's like so cool to see that and what this pose can eventually look like, right? Eventually I'll be on my head. But like I went into it as like I am not super flexible. I am more like just your average person, which I think helps me as a teacher because I know what it's like to be you, right? You on the mat. Like I'm not Gumby. I can't, I have tight hamstrings. I have injuries. I have tears. I have things that, I rehab myself and that I have to be aware of when I practice yoga or when I teach yoga. So, for me, going into teacher training was super intimidating because there were a lot of those superhumans who were just, you walk in and they're like on their head and you're like, oh my God, like, am I ever going to be able to do that? So for me, it was very cool being able to see that. Like, oh my gosh, maybe one day I'll be able to do that. And if not, that's fine. But like how cool to see all of these like super skilled people. And then, me going in as just kind of like, here's what I can do.
Right.
And then it helps me as a teacher learn how to modify poses and teach modifications, right?
Oh, there you go.
So it's just the way you look at it. And yoga is all about just like your personal practice. It's very different than like a gym mentality.
Right.
So we don't say like I'm going to be able to do that. It's like one day. Maybe one day I'll be able to do that. Not tomorrow.
It gives you something to aspire to.
Yeah. And if it's not something that ever happens, okay.
Right.
Where it's not like, well, I need to, I'm going to bench press 300 pounds and I'm going to work my way to that. Right. Because eventually anybody probably could do that with enough practice. And there are just some things that our bodies aren't able to do like other people's bodies can. And in yoga, we just figure out ways to replicate a feeling or a stretch. I mean, it might not look the same.
Right. And I do want to cover more about, because you said something very interesting about modifying the poses, and I do want to cover that. But for our audience, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to talk a lot more about, especially the health benefits of yoga, and we'll see you after the break. Hey, if you are enjoying these great interviews, just take a moment and go to totalmichigan.com/join, and you can get these episodes sent directly to your inbox, because there's a lot more great stories coming. See you there. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Total Michigan, where we interview ordinary Michiganders doing some pretty extraordinary things. I'm your host, Cliff Duvernois. Today, we're talking with Emilee Hartwig of Happy Dog Yoga Studios. And before the break, Emilee, you were sharing with us about your yoga journey, and you decided to do that crazy thing and become an instructor, and you've gotten your certification. You were talking about how the studios were built here, which was kind of like a big thing. What I would like to do now is if you would share with us that journey from you being an instructor to now owning both of these studios.
Yeah. So I became an instructor here, which was just so exciting to have like a teaching job at studios that were right here that I had already been coming to. And
you're getting paid.
Right. Also a perk, free yoga as an instructor. So that was cool. And then, so I taught here for probably about 3 years, 2.5 years.
Right.
I was just teaching here, which was, really cool. I get to teach, and then go home. Don't have to think about anything else too much. And then in like October 2019, kind of caught wind that the owner of the studios, Rhonda, she had gotten to that point where she was ready to kind of pass the torch on. And that was always her goal. She never wanted to own the studios and make this like her career. She's very busy. She works a full-time job. And her main thing was bringing yoga to the Blue Water area. And she did that, and she felt accomplished in that.
Okay.
So as I caught wind that, maybe it was time, she had kind of mentioned things to other people. And you know how all of us yoga teachers start chatting.
Yeah.
And we, so when I caught wind, I just gave her a call. And I just said, when you're ready, let me know. I don't know if it's something I can do. I have no idea. But just
because you've got no business training experience.
I have no business owning a business. And so I wanted the phone call first. And I just wanted her to know that I was interested and invested and cared enough about the studios right there.
Right.
And if she chose not to call me, that was fine. If she already had something worked out. That was October. And we closed on the studios in November, right before the weekend before Thanksgiving.
So let's go back and unpack a couple of things here.
Right.
So you had heard that studios were going up for sale.
Maybe. Right.
And most people would be like, sweet Moses, I better start shopping for someplace else to teach.
Right.
But you're thinking, oh, I could buy this place.
I don't know what I was thinking. And I think that is what led me to the actual signing the paperwork, because it happened so fast. So when I called her and said, just please let me know first. Again, I have no idea about any numbers, but just let me know. It wasn't even a week later and we were talking numbers. And, from the middle of October to the middle of November went very quickly.
Right.
With, here's a number. Okay. Let's start to transfer some things over. Let's meet at the lawyer's office. Let's sign the papers. And I didn't really have time for my type A brain to really think about it and get scared, because
start manufacturing problems.
The other part of my brain was just so excited. And it was where I think if we would have had another week or two in there, I would have been able to manufacture up, some problems that could arise.
Certainly.
And we never had the time, and all of a sudden the papers were signed and the keys were handed over, and that was it. They were mine.
And the train has left the station. So one of the things, and I get this sometimes from people in my audience, so I got to ask the question, right? So you're stepping in here, you're an instructor, you're buying the place. The financing part of this, was this something where you got a rich uncle somewhere? Was it is it one of these owner finance things where you're paying her off as you go? How did that work?
Okay, this is going to sound silly, but maybe not. During this whole time from me dropping out of the teaching program to buying the studios, I was a bartender. Okay. So I just had a box of cash. Literally a box of cash.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't know if the IRS is supposed to know that, but and so we I was able to give her a really good down payment and then make payments. Rhonda and I have a really good relationship, and so we were able to kind of do a land contract sort of a thing. So they're mine now.
Man,
completely
I love
mine
you.
now.
You can always find a way. You can always find a way if you got your heart set on it.
Yeah.
One of the things that you mentioned too before the break here. So, you've become the owner of the place. You're running it. Why don't you share with us maybe one or two of the really big surprises that all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, I'm the owner. I now have to take care of this.
Oh my gosh. It's all the little things
Little things. Okay.
The weekend that I bought the studios, it was the weekend before Thanksgiving. The toilet here broke.
Oh, of course.
Right. So I call Rhonda and she was just laughing. Have fun, So I have my dad up here, I haven't even owned them for a week, and we already, so it's that kind of stuff. I was on vacation a couple years ago and the furnace broke here. So then it's, I'm in Florida trying to,
of course,
navigate getting somebody here and trying to have a teacher here with a key to unlock the door. So it's like all of those little things that you don't think about, even as a teacher who's here.
Right.
Because if I just work here, I just call the owner. The furnace isn't working. The toilet's not working. We're out of this. We're out of that. And now that's all me. Now they're all calling me and telling me, so it's just those little things that definitely add up. I think that I just didn't think about because you're like, well, how hard can it be? It's just a couple yoga studios.
Yeah.
And then the business, the whole business portion. Because like I said, I don't have any business training. I went to school to teach kids how to color.
And all that other stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was definitely a learning process and still is. I'm still figuring it out. So.
Right. Well, we're all still figuring that one out. It's pretty complicated.
Right.
One of the things I do want to go back and explore, we started hitting on this a little bit, and this is something that I experienced myself because I do watch a lot of yoga on YouTube, but you hit on this before, and I think this is so intriguing. When you talk about like people coming in, taking the class, how you can modify the pose, because that's something that I can't get from YouTube.
Right.
I mean, the lady that I watch on there is doing stuff that I think is just physically impossible. Right. And I'm just like a mess on the floor trying to do what she does. She's like in a pretzel.
Right.
And I've got the flexibility of uncooked spaghetti. So talk to us about those advantages of actually coming in face to face for a class versus just, I'll just do this on YouTube.
Yeah. I think one of the important things about Happy Dog that I try to instill in our teachers is that I don't want them practicing yoga while they're teaching yoga. And once in a while, we have to demo something if it's just not making sense, right? Sometimes the best way is to do it and show them.
Right.
But we are all teaching in a way that's verbal. So that right there takes a lot of that away, right? You're not looking at somebody and thinking, she's doing something impossible and I'm uncooked spaghetti. When you're just hearing, bring your nose towards your knees, you're going to figure that out for your body, right? Whereas if you were looking at someone, you're going to try to do it the way he or she did it.
Right.
So we try to teach very verbally. And that was one of the things in my teacher training in Rochester was we should be able to get a blind person into any pose. So it was all about how how to like articulate and get somebody into a pose because like I said, there are a lot of poses I can't do, but I still teach them because other people can and should. So that's number one, and then number two is just coming to any studio, even if the teacher does practice with you or demo, coming to the studio and having a teacher that can come and physically assist you or place her hand on your shoulders to bring them away from your ears or help put a bend in your knees when you're folding forward really is what takes it up that notch from at home doing, virtual or YouTube to being in the studio, not only with people who are doing something that they enjoy along with you. You have that like collective community, but having a teacher there who can make sure you're doing things safely, right? Are your knees being crazy? Are we going to blow a shoulder out if you keep doing something like that?
Right, yes.
And sometimes the adjustments are just to make something more comfortable, right? It's not actually fixing something that's wrong. It's just if you bend your knees slightly when you're folding forward, that might help take some of this off of your lower back. And then people are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea how simple. And then as they learn modifications, you start to learn how your own body works. And you already just know, if I keep soft knees, things don't hurt so much. And that's really all that there is to it, is trying to find that space that doesn't hurt now and won't hurt tomorrow. That's different than being sore.
Right.
But we don't want it to hurt, ever.
No, you don't. And what is like the overall like health benefits of yoga?
Big, well, small scale. But what everybody thinks is that the health benefit is in the physical movement, is in the stretching. And there is and are so many benefits to stretching and moving, right? Mindfully moving is what I would call yoga.
Right.
But any movement, right? And like we talked about, like during COVID, it was like people just stopped moving. And so the stretch helps to make your back feel better. And you get up in the morning and you put your socks on and it doesn't hurt, right? And you get up from the couch and you're not like, like making a physical, like an audible noise.
Like I do.
Right. And we all do. And yoga helps with that on a very small scale. I think the really big picture of the health benefit of yoga and why do I feel so good after is the breath, is breathing.
Oh, yes.
And, you can get into very, crazy if you want to, like pranayama, which is breath. That's the word that we use. All these crazy different breathing techniques. But I think that just focusing on your breathing, even if it's not for the entire hour, because let's be real, you're also saying like, you want me to put my what, where? I need to do what? And you feel like you're playing Twister. So you're not always breathing intentionally. But that first few minutes of class and that last few minutes of class, when you really are just breathing.
Yes.
That is where the benefit is. Like there is no truer way to help your nervous system get into that rest and digest phase and out of that fight or flight mode than breathing. And it sounds silly because we're breathing right now and you have to breathe. But if you're not breathing intentionally and mindfully, it's just a breath that keeps you alive. The same way that like you can blink your eyes intentionally or not.
Right.
They're going to blink because otherwise your eyeballs will fall out, right? But if we blink intentionally, it would have a different effect on our eyes. It's the same way that breathing has a much different effect on our entire body, physical, mental, spiritual, when we're intentionally doing it.
It's interesting you say that. I was thinking back to the first time that I took my very first yoga class, and it was an hour-long class. I was beat up. Sweet Moses was I beat up, and this little girl upstage was just didn't even break a sweat, and I was like, this isn't fair. But I remembered at the very end, she made all of us lay down on our backs.
Yep.
And we just took deep breaths and we just did it. That's all we did. We probably did it for like maybe 5 minutes. But the thing that struck me was the endorphin rush from it. Because like you said, I was treating breathing like eating a Big Mac, right? It was just like, okay, I gotta breathe because I gotta breathe. But when you're intentionally breathing and taking those big, deep breaths,
yeah.
Holy cow. I was like, where has this been?
So that's how
life.
That's how every yoga class ends. That pose that you were laying in flat.
What do they call that?
Shavasana.
Shavasana. There we go.
It means corpse pose. It's as close.
Okay, we'll stick with Shavasana.
It's as close to death as you'll ever be, is how they explain it when we're learning it.
Okay.
Right. But you're doing nothing but breathing, not scratching our nose, not listening to those signs from our brain, because our brain is checking in. Like, are we sleeping? Are we dead? Are we alive?
Right.
And we're ignoring those.
Right.
And we're just going to breathe. And that's what makes it different than going to the gym. And I think going to the gym is great. But after you go to the gym, there isn't like a room full of people laying on the floor for 5 minutes not moving.
That's true.
They're missing that part, right? The breath part. And maybe that's not possible in a gym. But even if it's maybe sitting in your car for a few minutes before you pull out and just like a couple deep breaths, I think it really would help. Even if yoga's not your thing.
Yeah.
But the breathing, you can do that anywhere. And meditation gets a bad rap, but it doesn't have to be what everybody thinks meditation is. It can just be a couple breaths in your car, or if you do have a space, just lay down and just a couple deep, 2 minutes,
yes.
1 minute, and that's all.
Yes.
And you'll feel good.
You're right. And there's so many other things. Like I remember seeing a counselor and I was telling her about some problem I was struggling with. And that was like the first question she asked me. She goes, do you remember breathing? And I couldn't.
Yeah.
I just couldn't, and it's just like, it's like amazing that, and I'm glad you say that, but yeah, breathing seems like it's a big part of yoga.
Mm-hmm. It is. That's why it's the big picture. We can't always get people in the door just by advertising, we're going to teach you how to breathe and you're going to feel really good after. So that's where the stretching and the physical is also important.
Yes.
Because people see that, they want to feel it, they want to feel good, and then they start to learn how to breathe, or even just for a short amount of time, a couple deep breaths. And that's when I think they really get the mental benefits, and along with physical. But
right.
I think that's where we get some of that more self-care.
Right. Emilee, if somebody's listening to this and they want to check out more about what it is that you're doing, maybe check out some yoga classes, get some information, whatever it is, what's the best way for them to do that?
So they can go right to our website, which is just happydogyogastudio.com. No S at the end of that one, because there was only one. And then, or they can also email us, which would just be info like INFO, at happydogyogastudio.com. And that's going to be the quickest and best way. Our website has everything on it. Class pricing, class schedule at both studios, our virtual options, anything that's coming up is always on there.
Awesome. Emilee, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today. I really enjoyed this.
Good.
For our audience, you can always roll on over to totalmichigan.com, click on Emilee's interview, and get the links that she mentioned above. We'll catch you next time when we talk to another Michigander doing some pretty extraordinary things. We'll see you then.